Good morning, and I'd like to thank both Barry and Susie for all the great work that you guys do at the Chamber and in the Commonwealth. We really, really appreciate it. It's a real honor to be here today, not only as an individual who runs a business that's located here in Virginia, but I am a product of educators. My mom was a special education teacher. My father was a gym teacher, a football coach, an athletic director. With all due respect to those teachers in the room, my children used to tease them mercilessly around that. They would say, those that can do, those that can't teach. And they would look at my father and say, those that can't teach, teach phys ed, Zay. So you can only imagine my pride when my daughter graduated Colgate University and she told me that she wanted to go into the family business. So I was thinking to myself, here she is, Division I athlete, a double major in both mathematics and applied mathematics and economics. She was being courted by a number of the big consulting firms. And she came to me and she said, Dad, I'm going to be a middle school math teacher. And I said to her, Caitlin, I mean, you are going into the family business. I kind of thought consulting, but that's okay. Why middle school math? And she said to me, you know, Dad, it's very clear that we begin to lose young women in middle school, that they start to migrate away from STEM. And she said, if I could just be a role model and provide an inspiration to allow them to, at least have opportunities and choices as they get older, that would be a great thing. And, how do you argue with that? What Caitlin realized early on is that our problem is that we have a pipeline problem. I mean, we're working all the issues that we talk about with graduate education, undergraduate education, those types of things. But the reality is we've got to grab and energize children around this commitment to lifetime learning early on in the process. We at LMI are in the business of making the business of government better. We focus on the difficult problems. To do that, to do a good job for our clients, we need a very, very diverse workforce, an inclusive workforce, a workforce that comes to the organization with many experiences. And so to address that, what we're doing is we're addressing the problem as a portfolio. So what we're doing is we're working with Student Veterans of America to ensure that the servicemen and women, as they finish their service, as they enter higher education, are well prepared to enter the workforce. We're partnering with the universities and colleges here in the Commonwealth to not only focus on curriculum, but to focus on certification. 4-year degrees maybe aren't for everybody. We're working with the HSBCUs, sponsoring business case activities to ensure that people understand what consulting is early in their career and can better prepare for it. And finally, we're focusing as much on the environment as we are in the classroom, really trying to take an effort to ensure that we do get people engaged in solving problems, in multidisciplinary education, learning how to write, how to communicate. It's not all about problem solving. I think someone who shares this passion is Senator Kaine. Senator Kaine has been working tirelessly to improve access to quality education and prepare for the modern economy as Virginia's lieutenant governor, governor, and senator. He knows there's no one right path to success for everyone and has supported innovative solutions to help build and attract a skilled workforce in the Commonwealth. During his time as senator, he has focused on boosting job opportunities for Virginians, expanding access to job training programs, and reducing unemployment for military families and veterans. All topics we're very interested in hearing about today. So please join me in welcoming Senator Tim Kaine.
Hey, good morning. What a wonderful gathering, Barry. You should be very proud to you and Susie and the Chamber Board. This obviously is a topic that's on everybody's mind, and that's why the crowd is so big. I'm thrilled to be here to offer you some observations and opportunities. and especially to do it here in the convention center. This was a center that was built when I was a city councilman and mayor, so I have sort of a parental pride whenever we get to do events here, and I know Barry knows just what I mean because he was a wonderful mayor in Newport News, and Susie with Chesapeake. We always love to show off our city, and it's great to see so many friends here. What I want to do this morning is kick off this seminar, day-long symposium on the workforce by just offering you 3 observations that are sort of stories, 2 stories and some data, and then 3 opportunities. Opportunities where we can work together. You'll hear from Governor Northam, and I'm sure he'll offer some opportunities at the state level, but let me offer some at the federal level. Observations. First story. I had done a lot of economic development work when I was a city councilman and mayor of Richmond. And usually the pitch involved taxes and tax incentives. That was usually the key element to the pitch. And I started to notice a little bit of a change in what was on employers' minds when I was governor. Early in my time as governor, and no need to sort of mention the company, but there is a significant company that had sizable presence in both Hampton Roads and South Carolina. And it was right during the time that we're going into the national recession. And this company decided to consolidate their operations in one of the 2 locations. My Secretary of Commerce and Trade, another job that Barry had in the Allen administration, Pat Gottschalk, was in charge on programs like that, trying to put together the best case for Virginia. Why should the company choose us over South Carolina? And I remember the day that Pat came into my office and said, well, Governor, we've done the very best we can. We've come up with an incentive package, but I got to tell you, we have 2 challenges. One, our Virginia workforce is unionized and the South Carolina workforce isn't. And 2, South Carolina has a lot more incentive money on the table than we do. And the CEO is going to call you tomorrow, and you have to make the case for why they should pick Virginia rather than South Carolina. I said, well, Pat, is there any more money that we can get in terms of the funds that are available through the General Assembly? Is there more money? And he said, no, Governor, there's not. And I said, okay, then tell me what I have to say to enable Virginia to win this competition. And he said, quote, Governor, you'll have to think of something. Thank you for that sage advice. So the next day, the call happened, and the CEO, was very polite. We like both places. The economy's in a tough spot. We want to consolidate. Give me the Virginia pitch. And oh, by the way, do you know that South Carolina has more money on the table? Yes, I do know that. Is there any more money Virginia can put on the table? No, there is not. Well, then, Governor, why should we pick Virginia? And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Is this a short-term decision for your company or a long-term decision? He said, why do you ask that? And I said, look, if it's a short-term decision, I can't argue with the fact that South Carolina has more money on the table than Virginia does. I can't argue with that. So if it's a short-term decision, maybe that's the direction. But if it's a long-term decision, think about the schools where your employees' kids will go and look at Virginia test scores. Look at the percentage of kids that take and pass AP exams. Look at the fact that our Latino students are the top performing Latino students in the country in the elementary and secondary grades. Look at SAT scores. These will be the schools where your employees' kids will go, and also the schools that will be training the workers that you'll want to hire. Look at the higher education system. I'm looking here at a great college president, Tim, right before me. Look at our higher ed institutions and compare them with another state that I love, but I think we're going to win it on that. If it is a long-term decision, what's going to matter to you is people. And if it is a long-term decision, I think you will see that the education system that we have in Virginia is going to want to make you pick Virginia. Well, a week later, they picked Virginia. That taught me something very, very powerful. That was a time, that was probably in about 2005 or 6, where I started to see a shift in the way relocation and site planners and companies thought about where they wanted to be to workforce as number one. At the end of my time as governor, I had a major company, a friend worked at a major company in this country that can also remain nameless, and his job was site selection. And so what he would do is he would do site selection when they were getting ready to build a big new center of employment. He would run the competition between states to determine where they would go. He retired, and then he told me this in confidence. He said, Tim, when we did the competition, we knew before going in who would win. We did the competition to try to get the best financial deal on the table. And so you ought to do a competition if you want the best financial deal on the table. But we always knew before going in who was going to win, because we always made the decision based on the workforce. And we could tell what the workforce stats were and what the education systems were. And so then we'd pitch you against each other to give us a better financial deal. But we always knew who the winner was before we started the competition. That tells you why this is so important. Let me give you a stat, my third observation, then some opportunities to tell you why it's important. When I was born, 1958, Virginia was bottom quarter family income. And today we're top quarter. And only two states have moved from bottom quarter to top quarter during my lifetime. North Dakota is one. They discovered oil there. You know, that helped them. We didn't discover oil. We didn't move from bottom quarter to top quarter because like we discovered something. What we discovered was something inside ourselves. Because when I was born, you couldn't go to school with somebody whose skin color was different. And you couldn't go to UVA if you were a woman. And we were 1 out of 100 foreign born, and now we're 1 out of 9 foreign born, and much more international and open. What we discovered was that talent is the most precious asset in the world. It's not water, it's not oil, it's talent. And the societies or cities or states or nations that know how to find, reward, incentivize, encourage, grow, attract talent will then also be the places that will find and attract all the institutions, companies that want to be around talent. And that is going to be your best guarantee of improving your economy, not just for individuals, but for the society as a whole. So those are 3 observations, 2 stories, and 1 bit of data. Now let me offer you 3 opportunities. In the Senate, one of the committees that I'm really excited to be on is the HELP committee, and I love that acronym, HELP. Health, education, labor, pension. All of education, including the education of the healthcare workforce, labor and pension issues, so the workforce issues that we deal with in the Senate are in my committee. In my committee, my specialty is career and technical education. My dad ran an ironworking and welding shop. And I think we downgraded for a long time CTE education when we should be celebrating and lifting it up as every bit as important as college degrees. Within the area of education, just 2 thoughts for you. First, we just passed the rewrite of the Perkins Act, which is the organic federal law, one of the big 4 pillars of federal education law that is about career and technical education. Now, this is a law that's no silos. We do it and we give money to the states, and the states can decide, do Perkins money go to middle schools, high schools, standalone career tech programs, apprenticeship programs, community colleges, online programs? States have a lot of flexibility here. But we've just reauthorized Perkins. President Trump signed the bill about a month ago. It included 3 pieces of legislation that I wrote. And there's going to be some wonderful opportunities. So, Barry, as you and the team work on carrying out the blueprint as it goes to workforce and education, the rewrite of Perkins, I think, is going to give us the ability to really expand the renaissance around career and technical education that's going on in this country. The second is an opportunity, the next bill we're going to do, where we need your input to do it right. The next big bill that the committee will do is the Higher Education Act, and we are likely to do it in the next calendar year. Now, in Congress, we rewrite these big organic laws every 8 to 10 years. So that means if you're going to rewrite the Higher Ed Act, we can't rewrite it for today. We have to think about where we're going to be 10 years from now and then rewrite it for that reality. We could do a great job of writing a good, solid B-plus version of the Higher Ed Act if we listen to President Sands and college presidents. They would help us write a good B-plus version of the Higher Ed Act. But if we not only interacted with colleges, but we interacted with chambers, economic leaders, companies, and had them talk to us about their workforce needs and what they think the workforce needs are going to be in 5 years and in 10, then we can write an A-plus job. And so I would suggest if you can take some brain power within this chamber and focus on the blueprint that you have and what, from a federal policy level, would be really helpful as we're rewriting the Higher Ed Act to meet the workforce needs that you're going to talk about today. Two things I'm already focused on. One, I want to make sure we define higher ed to include everything as higher ed. People need things after high school, but it's not all college degrees. You know, it might be graduating from the apprenticeship program at the Newport News shipbuilding down in Newport News, which turns 100 next year, and to my way of thinking is probably the best technical program in the United States. It might be being a computer coder, an allied health professional. Right now, you can use Pell Grants for 14-week-long college courses. You can't use a Pell Grant for an intense 8-week career and technical program that's highly validated. So we need to define higher education broadly. And that is what we can do, and we can do it better with you. So that's the first opportunity in the education space, implementing Perkins, but then helping us rewrite the Higher Ed Act in a good way. The second opportunity in workforce is critical is immigration. It's immigration reform. I met with a group of dairy farmers in Wythe County from the statewide Dairy Farmer Association, and if I have a meeting like that every couple of years and it's up to them what they want to talk to me about, I sort of assume it's going to be maybe something about the EPA or something about the tax code or something about the price of milk and Canada's price of milk and trade. Immigration was front and center. Visa reforms to get agricultural workers. I had the Associated General Contractors of Virginia come in to see me. They do it once a year. And again, they usually talk to me about a regulatory or tax issue. This year they walked in and they brought workers of theirs who are here in the country pursuant to a status called TPS, Temporary Protected Status. They've come from nations that are subject to hurricanes and natural disasters. They're here legally and they're working and they're paying taxes. But the administration is threatening to end all the TPS protections for their workers. They brought their workers in and they asked about immigration reform. If I talk to aquaculture folks in the Northern Neck or the Eastern Shore, they're talking to me about visa reform. Immigration is fundamentally about the workforce. There's sort of two theories about immigration. Some people approach immigration as if it's about crime and problems. I think we ought to approach it as if it's about workforce and opportunities. And are there challenges like border security? You bet there are. That's why I've been proud to vote for border security when we've needed it. But I've never forgotten that immigration fundamentally is about the workforce. Go back and read the Declaration of Independence. We remember the flowery parts, that all are created equal, but most of the Declaration of Independence is a bill of particulars against King George. You wouldn't let us do X, Y, Z, and that's why we're now declaring our independence. And one of the declared complaints, you wouldn't let us have an immigration system that will enable us to bring in a talented workforce. So an opportunity for all of us. We passed comprehensive immigration reform in the Senate in 2013. It's moved nowhere in the House. We need to do it. It was last done under President Reagan in 1986 for the good of the workforce of this state and this country. And there's very few things that the CBO says will increase GDP by 2+ points and not cost a penny out of the federal treasury. Immigration reform done right finally would be a significant benefit to this Commonwealth and this country. And having the energetic support of our business community, ag, forestry, technology, is what we need to get that done for the first time in 32 years. So that would be the second opportunity that I would love your help on. And finally, Barry in the chamber has done something that no other chamber has done, no other state chamber has done, and that is made veterans unemployment sort of a laser-focused issue of priority for the chamber. And this is so important. When I was running for the Senate, somebody said to me, this is why I like being in the Senate. If you ask me what's the best thing about being in the Senate, the best thing is people come up to me and, hey, Senator, did you know? And they tell me something I didn't know. And that happens every day. Hey, Senator, did you know that the unemployment rate of Iraq and Afghan vets who were enlisted is twice the national average? 2011, I heard that. I didn't know that. I'm in the most military state in the country. I didn't know that. Well, my first bill was working with the people who told me that to try to bring down the veterans' unemployment rate. And because of initiatives like this Chambers and many of your corporations that focus on this, the veterans' unemployment rate is now less than the national average. You can make a difference on things like this if you give it persistent focus and attention. A year and a half ago, I was sitting down talking about health care costs with military families, and one of the women around the table said, hey, Senator, did you know that the unemployment rate among military spouses is 3 to 5 times the national average? And the answer was, no, I didn't know that. And I have a kid in the military who's married. I got a military spouse as a daughter-in-law. But I didn't realize that the unemployment rate was so significantly higher. But if you start talking, it becomes obvious. Move in the middle of the year to a place where you may know no one, and you have to find an apartment or housing, and you have to maybe get kids settled in school, and maybe you have a license, you're a cosmetologist, you're a real estate agent, you're an attorney, you're a teacher, but the license doesn't transfer to the new state. Or maybe it transfers to the new state if you pay a big fee, which you don't have. So I ask you, and you're already in such a good place on this because you're starting, if you can maybe even broaden your thinking a little bit to include, and many of the companies here do this, Amazon does a great job, veterans and military spouses, broaden it to think about our military spouses. That would be really, really helpful, because I'm convinced, and I wrote 2 bills to reduce military spouse employment. President Trump signed both at Fort Drum when he signed the National Defense Authorizing Act about a month and a half ago. We can do the same thing with driving down the military spouse unemployment rate as we did with driving down the veterans unemployment rate. It just requires that we pay attention to it. And if we pay attention to it, our natural sense of altruism and wanting to help people who sacrificed, I think, will enable us to get there. To close, here's another reason why this military spouse and vet thing is so important. It's important because they've sacrificed and we owe them something. It's important for that reason. It's important because we're patriotic, and Virginia is the most military connected of any of the states. It's also important for this reason. As you talk about workforce development, we'll talk a lot today about skills and skills training. But if I talk to employers, I'm more likely to hear not that I'm not finding the precise skills that I need. I'm more likely to hear I've got to have somebody who is a good communicator, who's creative, who can work in a team, who's a flexible problem solver, who's mission focused, who'll stay until the job is done. And then I hear people in the profession refer to those things as soft skills. I hate the phrase soft skills because it makes it sound like it's not as important. Those are survival skills. Those are success skills. And those are the skills that my employers tell me they really want to see in their workforce. And who better? Who knows better about teamwork and communication and being mission focused and staying until the job is done and being flexible and being a problem solver than somebody who's been in the military and has been deployed all over the world? Or a military spouse who's had to move here, there, and everywhere and go to new places and find new paths forward. The skills that I'm hearing about from our employers that they really want are exactly the kinds of skills that our veterans and military spouses bring to the table. So, 3 opportunities. Help us rewrite the Hire It Act to really speak to your need. Work with us to help get comprehensive immigration reform done and done well. And then let's really do all we can, because it'll be to our benefit as employers and as a society if our veterans and our military spouses are employed to their highest and best use. Thanks so much for having me today. Great to be with you.